There are moments when life feels louder than you can bear. You wake already tired, not from lack of sleep, but from anticipation. Messages waiting, responsibilities pressing, uncertainty lingering just beneath the surface. Perhaps you have noticed how quickly the mind searches for danger. A conversation that might go wrong, a future that refuses to become clear. A feeling that something important is slipping beyond your control. Outwardly, you continue moving, but inwardly tension grows. You try to solve everything at once, prepare for every possibility, protect yourself from every outcome, and yet, the more you try to control life, the less calm you feel. The Stoics understood this quiet struggle. They knew that the greatest battles are rarely visible. They happen within. Modern life teaches urgency. React quickly. Respond immediately. Defend your position. Keep up with everyone else. Calmness is often mistaken for weakness. Stillness appears unproductive. Silence feels uncomfortable. Patience seems outdated. So the mind accelerates. You compare your progress to others. You replay mistakes long after they pass. You anticipate problems before they exist. Anger rises easily. Anxiety becomes familiar. Peace begins to feel distant, almost unrealistic. You may even believe that stress is necessary for survival. That tension proves responsibility, but beneath constant reaction, exhaustion quietly accumulates. You carry invisible weight everywhere you go. The Stoics observed something profound. Life itself is not chaotic. Our resistance to life creates chaos. They noticed that human suffering often begins when we demand certainty from an uncertain world. You want guarantees before acting, control before trusting, comfort before endurance. Yet reality offers none of these consistently. And so conflict arises, not between you and the world, but between expectation and reality. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that external events are neutral. Only perception gives them power. This insight changes everything, because it reveals that calm is not granted by circumstance. It is cultivated by perception. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm, wind moving violently, rain falling relentlessly. You cannot command the storm to stop, but you can decide how you stand within it. Most people attempt to fight conditions they cannot control. They argue with traffic, resent delays, fear outcomes that have not yet arrived. The Stoic takes another path. He asks quietly, "What belongs to me here? My judgment, my response, my character, nothing more, nothing less." And within this boundary, calm becomes possible. You may recognize moments when emotion overwhelmed reason. An argument escalated unnecessarily. A small setback ruined an entire day. A single criticism lingered for hours. These moments reveal how quickly reaction replaces awareness. The Stoics practiced emotional mastery, not by suppressing feeling, but by slowing reaction. Between event and response exists a space, a brief pause. Within that pause lives power. When you learn to remain calm inside that space, you reclaim authority over your life. Consider relationships. Difficult times often reveal hidden expectations. You want others to understand you perfectly, to behave consistently, to meet emotional needs without confusion. But people are unpredictable. They carry their own fears, histories, and struggles. When you attempt to control their reactions, frustration grows. The Stoic approach changes the question. Not why are they like this, but how shall I respond with dignity? You stop trying to manage others. You begin managing yourself, and relationships become lighter, less combative, more compassionate, because calm strength invites calm strength. Work presents another arena of difficulty. Pressure builds, deadlines approach, recognition feels uncertain. You may feel trapped between ambition and exhaustion. The modern world equates worth with productivity. But Stoicism separates effort from outcome. You control effort. You do not control results. When you act fully without attachment to outcome, anxiety loosens its grip. You work with focus instead of fear, and calm becomes a source of efficiency rather than passivity. Social media intensifies emotional turbulence. You witness success without context, happiness without struggle, confidence without vulnerability. Comparison begins quietly. You question your pace, your achievements, your value. The Stoics warned against measuring life through external appearances. They trained themselves to return attention inward. Your path is yours alone. Calm emerges when comparison ends. Difficult times often bring loneliness. Moments when uncertainty isolates you. You may feel misunderstood, unsupported, or invisible. Yet the Stoics valued solitude, not as withdrawal from humanity, but as return to self. In solitude, you meet your thoughts honestly. You learn that calm does not require external reassurance. It grows from familiarity with your own mind. You become your own companion, and loneliness transforms into inner stability. There comes a moment when you recognize your participation in emotional suffering. You replay worries repeatedly. You imagine worst outcomes. You resist what has already happened. This recognition is not blame. It is liberation. Because if perception contributes to suffering, perception can also restore peace. The discipline of perception begins gently. You notice thoughts without immediately believing them. You observe emotion without surrendering control. You allow experience without adding resistance. Gradually, calm expands. Transformation does not occur instantly. The Stoics practiced daily remembrance. They reminded themselves each morning, difficult people will appear. Unexpected events will occur. Plans will change. Preparation reduced shock. Acceptance reduced anger. Endurance replaced complaint. You begin meeting difficulty with readiness instead of resistance. And readiness breeds calm confidence. Self-command becomes your anchor. When others panic, you remain steady. When situations escalate, you slow down. When uncertainty appears, you continue acting according to principle. Calmness becomes strength, not passive acceptance. Active composure, a deliberate refusal to abandon reason under pressure. This is why calm is power, because power is not domination over others. It is mastery over oneself. Hammerfati deepens this perspective. You stop wishing life were easier. You begin loving life as it is. Even difficulty becomes meaningful. Challenges refine patience. Loss reveals gratitude. Uncertainty strengthens resilience. You do not merely tolerate fate, you cooperate with it, and cooperation dissolves inner conflict. Over time, calm becomes your natural state. You listen more deeply, react less impulsively, see situations more clearly. Others may notice something different about you. Not loud confidence, quiet presence, a steadiness that reassures without words. Because calm communicates safety, and safety invites trust. You realize that calm does not remove pain. It transforms your relationship with it. You still experience hardship, but hardship no longer defines you. You endure without hardening, adapt without losing integrity, continue without despair. The Stoics believe the strongest person is not the one untouched by difficulty, but the one who remains composed within it. Perhaps now you sense what calm truly offers. Not escape from life, but the ability to live fully regardless of circumstance. You no longer wait for conditions to improve before feeling peaceful. You carry peace into imperfect moments, and life, though still unpredictable, becomes less threatening, because you trust your capacity to meet it. As this reflection comes gently to rest, consider the quiet strength growing within you. The storms of life will continue, uncertainty will return, challenges will arise, change will remain constant. But calm allows you to stand unmoved at the center of movement, not rigid, not detached from humanity, simply grounded. And maybe the real power you have been searching for was never control over the world, but mastery over your response to it. So leave yourself with this question. When the next difficult moment arrives, will you react as the storm, or remain as the calm that outlasts it? And perhaps now you begin to notice something subtle. Calm is not the absence of difficulty. It is the absence of inner resistance. Life continues to move with unpredictability. People change, plans collapse, unexpected challenges arrive without warning. Yet something inside you has begun to shift. You no longer expect life to remain stable. You expect yourself to remain steady. This difference transforms how you experience hardship. The Stoics understood that difficult times reveal character rather than destroy it. When pressure rises, habits become visible. Some react instantly, some blame circumstances, some search desperately for escape. But the Stoic pauses, not because he feels nothing, but because he understands that emotion, left unchecked, often clouds judgment. You may have noticed how anger promises strength, but leaves exhaustion behind. How anxiety promises preparation, but steals presence. How urgency promises control, but creates confusion. Calm, by contrast, feels almost invisible, yet it preserves clarity. And clarity allows wise action. Consider moments when everything seemed to demand immediate reaction. An unexpected message, a sudden failure, a conflict that stirred strong emotion. The impulse is always the same. Respond now, defend now, fix everything immediately. But calm introduces distance, a breath, a pause, a moment of observation. Within that pause, perception changes. You see that many situations are not emergencies. They only feel urgent because emotion accelerates time. The Stoics trained themselves to slow inner time even when outer events moved quickly, and in doing so, they preserved freedom. You may begin recognizing how much suffering comes from anticipation. You suffer tomorrow's problems today. You imagine outcomes before reality unfolds. You rehearse conversations that never happen. The mind travels endlessly into the future, searching for safety. Yet safety is never found there. Because the future exists only as imagination, calm returns you to what is real. This breath, this moment, this action within your reach. Epictetus reminded his students that anxiety grows when attention leaves what is controllable. When you return attention to present action, fear weakens naturally. Difficult times also challenge identity. You may ask yourself, why is this happening to me? Why now? Why must things be so difficult? But Stoicism invites a different question. Not why me, but what is this asking of me? Every hardship becomes training. Every obstacle becomes instruction. You stop seeing difficulty as interruption. You begin seeing it as refinement. And refinement strengthens calm. Because meaning replaces resentment. Relationships often test calm more than circumstances do. A harsh word, a misunderstanding, someone acting unfairly, the instinct is to mirror emotion. Anger meets anger. Defensiveness meets defensiveness. Yet calm strength refuses imitation. You respond according to your values, not according to another's reaction. This requires discipline. It feels unnatural at first, but gradually, you discover that calm disarms conflict more effectively than aggression ever could. You become a stabilizing presence rather than another source of turbulence. There will still be days when calm feels distant, moments when emotion overwhelms intention. The Stoics never expected perfection. They expected practice. Each time you remember to pause, you strengthen awareness. Each time you choose patience over reaction, you reinforce self-command. Calm grows through repetition, quiet victories accumulating over time. You may notice an emerging confidence, not loud confidence seeking recognition, a silent certainty. You trust your ability to endure discomfort. You trust your capacity to recover. You trust that no single moment defines your life. This trust reduces fear, and when fear recedes, calm expands naturally. Amor fati deepens once more. You begin welcoming difficult seasons as necessary parts of existence. You no longer wait for life to become easy before feeling strong. You understand that strength is forged precisely where comfort disappears. You stop wishing challenges away. You use them. Every obstacle becomes material for growth. Every delay becomes patience training. Every uncertainty becomes an invitation to resilience. And calm becomes not merely a response, but a way of living. Over time, others may notice something different about you. You do not escalate tension. You do not panic easily. You do not chase emotional extremes. Your presence slows conversations, stabilizes environments, creates space for reflection. Without trying, you become a source of quiet reassurance. Because calm is contagious. Just as fear spreads quickly, so does composure. And the Stoics believed the highest form of strength benefits not only oneself, but everyone nearby. Perhaps the deepest realization arrives gently. You cannot control whether difficult times come, but you can decide who you become when they do. You can become reactive or reflective, restless or grounded, overwhelmed or calm. And this choice, repeated daily, shapes character. Character becomes destiny. As this conversation continues to settle within you, imagine meeting the next challenge differently. Not with resistance, not with fear, but with steady awareness. You breathe, you observe, you act deliberately. The storm may still exist, but you no longer become the storm. You remain the center. And so before we part, remain with one final reflection. Difficult times do not ask whether you are ready. They simply arrive. But when they do, ask yourself quietly, will you search for control outside, or discover the power that has been calm within you all along. And perhaps now you begin to understand something even deeper. Calm is not a technique. It is an identity. It is not something you switch on when life becomes difficult. It is something you become through repeated choice. Every time you resist the urge to react impulsively, every time you pause before speaking, every time you accept what you cannot change, you are not just practicing calm. You are building it into your character. There is a quiet strength in knowing that you cannot prevent hardship. You cannot prevent loss. You cannot prevent misunderstanding. You cannot prevent uncertainty, but you can prevent unnecessary suffering. You can prevent escalation. You can prevent your emotions from dictating your actions. You can prevent chaos from entering your inner world. This realization does not make you passive. It makes you deliberate. You stop trying to manage the uncontrollable. You begin mastering what belongs to you, your thoughts, your judgments, your choices, and within that boundary, power lives. The Stoics often reflected on impermanence, not to create fear, but to create perspective. Every difficult season ends. Every painful moment passes. Every crisis eventually transforms into memory. When you remember this, intensity softens. You realize that no emotional state is permanent, and this awareness helps you endure without panic. You begin telling yourself gently, this too belongs to life. This too will pass. This too can teach me something. Calm becomes anchored in perspective rather than comfort. You may notice that calm changes how you experience time. When anxious, minutes feel urgent. When angry, seconds feel explosive. When overwhelmed, everything feels accelerated. But calm slows time. You move deliberately. You think clearly. You respond thoughtfully. This slowing creates space, and space creates wisdom. Without space, reaction dominates. With space, choice emerges. There is something else that begins to shift. You stop interpreting difficulty as personal attack. You no longer believe life is against you. You understand that hardship is not targeted. It is universal. Everyone you meet carries invisible burdens. Everyone faces storms unseen. This realization softens resentment. You become less reactive, more compassionate, not because you excuse injustice, but because you recognize shared humanity. And compassion strengthens calm rather than weakening it. You may also begin noticing how fear loses its grip. Fear thrives on imagined futures, but when you return to present action, fear weakens. You cannot solve tomorrow. You can only act wisely today. This simple focus reduces overwhelm. One step, one decision, one deliberate action at a time. The Stoics trained themselves to live within this narrow but powerful frame, not because they ignored the future, but because they refused to be dominated by it. And then, perhaps without realizing it, calm becomes your default response. You wake and breathe before rushing. You listen before reacting. You think before speaking. This rhythm changes everything. Your nervous system steadies. Your mind clarifies. Your decisions improve. Life does not become easier. You become stronger. There is a moment when you recognize that calm is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. Anyone can shout. Anyone can panic. Anyone can blame. Few can remain composed when emotions rise. Few can hold steady when uncertainty appears. Few can endure discomfort without complaint. This restraint is power, because it requires mastery over impulse, and mastery over impulse creates freedom. The Stoics believed that freedom was not political or external. It was internal. Freedom from anger controlling you. Freedom from fear dominating you. Freedom from anxiety dictating your choices. When you cultivate calm, you reclaim this freedom. No one can provoke you into losing yourself. No circumstance can force you into reaction without consent. You remain sovereign within your own mind. And perhaps now, as the conversation slows once more, you feel something subtle. A steadiness. Not excitement, not intensity, just presence. This presence is the beginning of lasting strength. The storms will return. Difficult times will revisit you. But you will meet them differently. Not as someone seeking escape, but as someone capable of standing firm. So when the next challenge arrives, and it will, remember this: you do not need to control the storm. You do not need to eliminate uncertainty. You do not need to force comfort. You need only to remain steady, to act with integrity, to respond with awareness, to endure with patience. Because calm is not the absence of chaos. It is the refusal to let chaos enter your character. And so I leave you with one final quiet reflection. When life tests your limits, will you let the noise define you? Or will you become the calm that defines the moment? And perhaps now something even quieter begins to settle inside you. Not just an idea about calm, but a recognition. You realize that the moments which shaped you most were not the easy ones. They were the ones that demanded restraint, the ones that required patience, the ones that tested your composure when it would have been easier to collapse. Calm was not the absence of emotion in those moments. It was the decision not to be ruled by it. And that decision, repeated over time, becomes character. There is a subtle maturity that comes with this understanding. You stop asking life to remove difficulty. You start asking yourself to grow steadier within it. This shift changes how you approach every challenge. Instead of thinking, how do I escape this? You begin thinking, how do I meet this well? Meeting difficulty well becomes more important than avoiding it. The Stoics did not chase comfort. They trained for endurance, because endurance builds confidence that comfort never can. When you know you can endure, fear loses its dominance. You may begin noticing how differently you carry yourself. Your posture softens. Your voice slows. Your breathing deepens. Calm reshapes the body as much as the mind. You no longer rush through conversations. You no longer react to every impulse. You allow silence to exist without filling it. This quiet presence creates a kind of gravity. Others may feel it without understanding why. It is the gravity of someone who is not easily shaken. And stability in a restless world becomes rare and valuable. There is also a refinement in how you interpret events. A setback is no longer a catastrophe. A delay is no longer an insult. A disagreement is no longer a threat. Perception shifts from personalization to observation. You see events as part of the human condition rather than attacks on your identity. This discipline of perception protects your inner world. It prevents unnecessary emotional escalation, and it allows clarity to remain intact, even when circumstances are imperfect. Calm also deepens your ability to listen. When you are not consumed by reaction, you hear more. You notice tone, subtle emotion, unspoken meaning. You respond thoughtfully rather than defensively. And this changes relationships in ways force never could. People feel safe around steadiness. They open more easily. They trust more readily. Calm becomes influence without aggression. There may still be moments when emotion rises quickly. A sudden disappointment, an unexpected loss, a wave of frustration, but now something is different. You recognize the wave as temporary. You let it pass without building a story around it. You refuse to turn a moment into a narrative of defeat. The Stoics called this inner governance. You govern your interpretations. You govern your reactions, and in doing so, you preserve dignity. Over time, calm becomes less of an effort and more of a rhythm, like a steady heartbeat beneath the surface of experience. Even when the surface ripples, depth remains still. This depth is not created by circumstance. It is cultivated through attention. Attention to what you can control. Attention to how you respond. Attention to your own thoughts before they harden into belief. This attentiveness strengthens awareness, and awareness protects peace. Perhaps now you see that calm is not withdrawal from life. It is full participation without panic. You act, you care, you engage, but you do not lose yourself in the process. You remain grounded even while moving forward. And this grounding creates resilience, because resilience is not about never falling. It is about returning to center quickly, again and again. Emphati, the love of fate, becomes easier to embody when calm stabilizes you. You stop arguing with reality. You stop wishing circumstances were different. You begin asking what each moment offers. Even difficulty becomes a teacher. Even loss becomes perspective. Even uncertainty becomes space for growth. Nothing is wasted. Everything refines you. At some point you realize that calm is contagious. Your steadiness influences rooms without effort. Your composure lowers tension. Your patience slows chaos. Without seeking control, you create stability. And this is quiet leadership. Not dominance, not authority imposed, but strength embodied. And perhaps the most powerful shift of all is this. You no longer fear difficult times. You respect them. You understand that they reveal who you are becoming. They test your alignment. They strengthen your discipline. They deepen your perspective. Instead of resisting hardship, you meet it, and in meeting it calmly, you grow beyond it. So as this reflection reaches its final stillness, remain here for a moment. Feel the steadiness available within you. Not dramatic, not loud, just steady. Life will continue changing. Uncertainty will return. Challenges will arise. But you now understand something timeless. Power is not found in controlling the world. It is found in mastering yourself. And so as you move forward, carry this final question with you quietly. When the world around you becomes unstable, will you search for power outside? Or will you remember that your calm is already strength? And perhaps now, as the words begin to slow, you notice something unexpected. Nothing around you has changed. The world continues moving. Responsibilities remain. Uncertainty still exists. Yet inwardly there is space. A small distance between you and the urgency that once controlled you. This distance is not indifference. It is awareness. And awareness is where calm truly begins. For most of life, people are taught to react before they understand. Emotion arrives and action follows immediately. Anger demands expression. Fear demands avoidance. Anxiety demands control. But the Stoics practiced a different rhythm. They allowed emotion to arrive and then waited. They understood that the first reaction belongs to instinct. The second response belongs to character. And character is built in that brief pause between feeling and action. You may begin to sense how powerful that pause truly is. It is where freedom lives. Difficult times often reveal how fragile external stability really is. Plans fail, people disappoint, certainties dissolve. When identity depends on stability outside you, chaos feels unbearable. But when identity rests within, instability becomes manageable. You become adaptable without becoming lost. Like a tree whose branches move with the wind, while its roots remain deep and steady. Calm is those roots, invisible, silent, essential. You may also notice how calm reshapes ambition. You still strive. You still grow. You still care about progress, but urgency fades. You no longer rush to prove yourself. You work with patience rather than pressure. The Stoics believed excellence emerges from disciplined consistency, not emotional intensity. You act well because it is your nature to act well, not because success guarantees recognition. And this transforms effort into peace rather than exhaustion. There is another quiet liberation waiting here. You stop fearing uncertainty, not because uncertainty disappears, but because you trust your ability to meet whatever arrives. Fear weakens when self-trust strengthens. You realize you have survived difficulty before. You have endured confusion, disappointment, and change. Each time you adapted. Each time you continued. This memory of endurance becomes confidence. Not loud confidence, steady confidence. The kind that does not need reassurance. Calm also teaches humility. You understand that control is limited. You stop forcing outcomes. Stop demanding perfection. Stop resisting every inconvenience. You cooperate with reality rather than fighting it. And cooperation reduces suffering dramatically, because much pain comes not from events themselves, but from insisting they should not exist. Acceptance is not surrender. It is alignment. You align with what is real, so that your energy can serve meaningful action. Perhaps you begin noticing how gratitude grows naturally within calmness. You appreciate simple moments without needing them to be extraordinary. A quiet morning, a meaningful conversation, a moment of rest between challenges. When the mind stops chasing constant stimulation, ordinary life reveals its richness. The Stoics trained themselves to notice what already existed rather than longing endlessly for what did not, and gratitude stabilizes calm. It reminds you that even difficult seasons contain moments worth honoring. There is also a deeper compassion that emerges. You see others struggling with the same inner storms you once fought. Their anger hides fear. Their impatience hides uncertainty. Their aggression hides vulnerability. Instead of reacting defensively, you respond with understanding. Not weakness, wisdom. Because calm people do not escalate suffering. They absorb tension without multiplying it, and in doing so, they quietly change the emotional atmosphere around them. Over time, calm becomes your refuge, not an escape from life, but a way of living within it. You carry stability into chaos, clarity into confusion, patience into pressure, and you begin trusting that no moment is too difficult to meet with composure. You understand that strength is not measured by how loudly you fight the storm, but by how steadily you remain while it passes. The Stoics never promised a life free from hardship. They promised something more enduring, a mind that cannot be easily disturbed, a character that remains upright regardless of circumstance, a person capable of meeting fortune and misfortune with equal dignity. This is the power hidden within calm. It does not dominate. It endures. And now, as this reflection reaches its quiet conclusion, allow yourself one final pause. Notice your breath. Notice the stillness available right now. This stillness has always been accessible. It was never created by perfect conditions, only uncovered when resistance softened. Carry this understanding with you. Difficult times will come again, but you no longer meet them as someone searching desperately for control. You meet them as someone grounded, aware, steady, and ready. So remain with this final question gently and honestly. When life becomes difficult again, will you chase power through force, or will you remember that true power has always been calm? And perhaps now there is nothing left to add, only something to remember, because calm is not built in a single evening of reflection. It is built in ordinary mornings, in small disappointments, in brief pauses before speaking, in quiet decisions no one else sees. Power does not arrive dramatically. It accumulates. Each time you choose restraint over impulse, each time you breathe instead of react, each time you accept what is beyond you and act upon what is within you, you are strengthening something invisible, and the invisible is what sustains you when everything visible begins to shake. There will be days when you forget, when emotion moves faster than awareness, when pressure feels suffocating, when calm seems distant. This is not failure, it is practice. The Stoics did not aim for perfection. They aimed for return. Return to reason. Return to perspective. Return to composure. Again and again. Calm is not a permanent state. It is a repeated choice, and repetition shapes identity. You may begin noticing a shift in how you define strength. It is no longer loud, no longer aggressive, no longer reactive. Strength becomes the ability to endure discomfort without losing dignity, to face uncertainty without panic, to experience emotion without surrendering to it. This is rare, because it requires patience in a world addicted to speed. But patience creates depth, and depth creates resilience. There is also a quiet joy hidden within this path. Not excitement, not constant happiness, but satisfaction. The satisfaction of knowing you acted according to your principles, that you met difficulty with intention, that you preserved your character when it would have been easier to abandon it. This satisfaction does not depend on applause. It exists between you and your conscience, and it is enough. When you stop fighting reality, energy returns. Energy once spent on resistance becomes available for growth. You think more clearly, rest more deeply, engage more fully. Life feels less like a battlefield and more like a landscape. You are capable of walking steadily. The terrain still changes, but you no longer demand that it remain smooth. You adapt, you continue. Calm does not make you distant from life. It makes you intimate with it. You feel moments fully without being overwhelmed by them. You recognize impermanence without despair. You appreciate beauty without clinging to it. You accept loss without collapsing into bitterness. This balance is power, because it frees you from extremes, and extremes exhaust the spirit. There may come a time when someone asks you how you remain steady during difficulty. You may not have a dramatic answer. You may simply say that you learn to pause, to observe, to accept, to act where action is possible and release where it is not. Simple practices, repeated consistently. This simplicity is what makes Stoicism timeless. It does not promise control over life. It offers control over self, and control over self is the only lasting power available to any human being. As you carry this understanding forward, remember that storms are not interruptions of life. They are part of it, and calm is not denial of the storm. It is your way of standing within it without losing your center. You will still feel, you will still care, you will still experience uncertainty, but you will not be swept away by it. You will remain steady, present, grounded. So as this final silence approaches, let everything settle. Feel the strength that does not shout, the confidence that does not demand attention, the composure that does not require recognition. This is yours. It has always been yours, and it grows each time you choose it. So when the next difficult moment arrives, and it will, remember, You do not need to overpower the world. You only need to remain aligned within it. And ask yourself quietly when the pressure rises, will I surrender my peace to circumstance? Or will I stand calmly and let my character speak instead?